We're doing compound interest. So whenever you do anything, like even mortgages and stuff like that, or you are investing, they do compound interest. Compound interest is better than simple interest, and we're only going to do compound interest. Compound interest, what happens is if it compounds monthly, at the end of the month, it'll take all the interest you made on your investment, let's say, and it puts it in with the investment. And now for the next month, you're going to make interest off of what you invested plus the interest you made. And at the end of the next month, it's going to take that interest, put it in, and now you're making interest off your interest plus your amount of money. So that's why compounding is awesome if it's an investment, because you're going to make money off of what you put in and the interest you're making. Okay? But if it's a mortgage, it kind of stinks because at the end, in Canada, they can only compound every 6 months. So at the end of the 6 months, they take what interest you owe on your total and they plop it in, and now you have to pay money off, you have to pay off your loan plus the interest. Okay, the formula is usually A equals P, but I'm going to once again just use F and I so that it stays the same. F I 1 plus I divided by CP, N times CP. Now, often if you're given this formula on the diploma, because sometimes they give you the formulas on the diploma, and they don't have them as F and I, they have them as different letters. It doesn't matter as long as you know what you fill in each spot, right? It doesn't matter what they call it. But if they do give you this formula, it'll be AP equals 1 plus I to the N, and they're not going to have the divided by CP and the times CP. You're going to need to know that, okay? They won't have that part on the actual formula sheet. So F is still final, didn't change. I is still initial. I found often that on the diploma, people don't, even if they give you a formula, people will just go and use their own formula they have memorized in their head just because it's easier than trying to decipher out of their formula. I is the interest rate in decimal form. N is the number of years. And as long as you multiply by the compounding periods, N will be the number of years. And CP is the compounding period. Both of these CPs. Now, compounding periods, if it says it compounds annually, how many times do you think that is a year? How many times do you think that is? Once. Oh, that's great. Annually. Annually is once. At the end of the year or whatever month it is, they'll take your interest and they'll put it in, and then now you're making interest off of what you invested in your interest, but it happens once a year. So actually, the more it compounds, the faster your money will grow, right? Because then you're earning interest off your interest faster. If it's monthly, how many times is that? How many months in a year? 12. If it's semi-annually, that's twice. And if they say quarterly, how many quarters in a year? How many quarters in a dollar? 4. Quarterly is 4 times. So they'll say it compounds annually or monthly or semi-annually or quarterly, and you need to know what that is. I is the interest rate in decimal form, and is the number of years, initial, final. So let's try an example. Hallie invested $1,000 at, she's going to have like this amazing investment at 6% per A. 6% per A is per annum. You might be like, 6%, that's nothing. Trust me, when you're sitting at normally 1% or even lower, 6% is pretty awesome. The interest rates used to be, when I first bought a house 10 years ago, my interest rate was, it was a $200,000 house. It was a townhouse. And the interest rate was 5 point, what was it? It was 6 point something. Anyways, at just 6%, at the end of my 25 years, I would have paid $400,000 for that house. So 6% doesn't seem like much, but at 6%, I would have paid double in 25 years what my house was worth. Okay, so in the 80s, they had sometimes the interest rate was like 17% and 20%. So people just walked away from their homes because you can only lock your interest rate in for a certain amount. Sometimes you have floating interest rates, so some people will just not lock it in and they'll float with the interest rate, which works well now because we've had low interest rates, like 2%. But you can lock them in for 5 or 10 years max, but you have to think about it. Your house is, you're purchasing it over 25 years, but you're not locking your interest rate over 25 years. If you do lock it, you're locking it maximum usually 10 years. So at the end of 10 years, you're praying and hoping that the interest rate is low because it could be ridiculous too. We've lucked out, we've had low interest. So Hallie invested $1,000 at 6% per A, per annum. This is always going to be per annum per A. Don't let that A throw you off, okay? Then it'll say compounded, and I'm going to say monthly. The instant you see this word, compounded, you use that formula. Just like when I said the instant you saw doubling or tripling or half-life, bless you, when you saw those, you use the other formula. The moment you see compounded, you use this formula. Okay? So it's not hard to figure out which formula you need to use. There's certain words in each word problem that give it away. So doubling, half, tripling means you use the first one. Compounded means you use this one. So Hallie invested $1,000 at 6%, compounded monthly, period. How many years will it take for the investment to grow to $3,000? Okay, Hallie invested $1,000 at 6% compounded monthly. How many years will it take for the investment to grow to $3,000? So we know that we have F, I, little I, N, and CP. I told you that when solving any of these, you can only be missing one thing, correct? Now, please, you guys, this is a 1. If you have to do like this, so that you know it's a 1, do it like that. People are like, I don't know what to fill in for L. I'm like, it's not an L. I don't know what to fill in for capital I. I'm like, that's not even close to a capital I. And that's why my kid's called Lila instead of Isla. The capital I looks like a lowercase L, so she's Lila all the time. She was baptized Lila. Like Lila Lepp. So, F, final amount. Do we have a final amount? What is it? 3,000. What's our initial amount? 1,000. What's our interest? What's our interest? 0.06. Please don't put 60% by going 0.6. Okay? If you have percent and you need to turn it to a decimal and your brain just does not like doing that, divide by 100. It'll turn it to a decimal for you. So if you go 6% divided by 100, it'll turn it to a decimal, right? Number of years? We don't know. That's what we're finding. CP compounding periods? 12, because it says monthly. All right. So we're going to have 3,000, our final, equals our initial, which is 1,000. 1 plus I, which is 0.06, divided by CP. Oops, that's supposed to be letters, and I'm filling it in. I divided by CP. So it's going to be 0.06 divided by 12 to the n times CP. So 12n. You could go n12 if you really want to. It just looks better as 12n instead. So then what I do is I figure out my bracket, what's in my bracket, and put it all together as one little decimal. And I divide by my I, because that's what I do every single time. Doesn't matter what formula I give you. So I'm going to divide by my I. So I'm going to get 3 equals, now go 0.06 divided by 12. What's 0.06 divided by 12? Plus 1. So you're going to get 1.005. Yeah, plus 1 to the 12n. So the 12n, if you don't have a calculator that raises the exponent up, once again, you have to put this in brackets. So let's try it. Y1, Y2. Your answer when you're finding n will always be in years. So if it wants it in months, you'd have to take whatever your answer is and times it by 12, right? Plug it into your calculator.
1.6.
What did you get when you did the intersection?
18.3559.
Okay, so we get n equals 18.35542. 942. Okay, now this is years. Whenever we solve for n, it's always in years. So that's going to take me 19 years. We round up because if she needed to buy a car, first off, hopefully she was a child when she started this investment, for $3,000, it's going to take her 19 years to get there. It takes a long time. That's more than doubling her investment, right? You guys, you have to think about it. I know $3,000 seems like a little bit of money, but she started with 1,000, now she's 3,000. It's going to take a long time for it to be more than double. So that seems reasonable. If I wanted months, you'd have to times it by 12. So before you round it to 19, if I wanted months, you're going to take this 18.35. Please pay attention. If we're going to round, if I wanted it in months, you're going to take this, you're going to times it by 12, and then you're going to round up. You don't round until your very last answer. So I'm not going to take this to 19 and then times it by 12. It would make it totally different. Okay, so we're only going to round our answers in. Okay. Example. Let's try. Bologna. Invest. Wants. Totus. Bologna wants $20,000 in 5 years. He invests at 4% per annum, compounded monthly. Nah, go semi-annually. Compounded semi-annually. How much does he need to invest today? How much money? So we have final, initial, I, CP, N, and we can only be missing one. Do we have the final? He wants $20,000 in 5 years. Where does that go? That's your N. At 4%, 0.04, compounded semi-annually is 2. Remember, whenever you read a question and it has the word compound in it, it's the very first thing you should be underlining because that tells you need to use this formula, right? And I is how much money does he need to invest today? What we're finding. So we're going to have $20,000 equals I times 1 plus 0.04 divided by 2 to the 5 times 2. So this is one of those that you don't have to type into your calculator y1, y2. You can actually solve it. It's I times all of that. So if you just find out what all of that is and divide it over, you get I, right? Because I should be multiplied by this. Sometimes when people are looking for final, I find that even funnier because they'll go y1, y2. No, just solve for everything over here and you'll get the final. You know what I mean? So 20,000 equals I. Now what's 0.04 divided by 2 plus 1? Yeah. To the 10, right? Now this whole thing is attached. So I'm going to divide it over. 1.02 to the 10. Punch that in your calculator and you get I to be what? Because it's 5 times 2. So he's going to need $16,406.97 now, so that in 5 years he has $20,000. So page 396, 7, 8, 13, 14. In the sit, child, textbook.